Welcome back from the break, and this is the part of the show where I know you are eager to learn. So pick a pen, pick a piece of paper, and jot this down because we are talking about how to clear debt. And what does debt mean for you and your company in the long run? We talked to two experts, and that's exactly what we're getting into right now, so don't go anywhere. Good morning and welcome to KTN Life and Style. And today we're having a conversation with Roy Okonji about debt. And he is the person you need to be talking to when it comes to matters debt. He is an author. He talks about it in general terms on YouTube and everything surrounding debt. So Roy, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence this morning and your knowledge, because that is what we want to get out of you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so in terms of debt, we asked this question because COVID-19 came and it changed our lives. And I don't think we can ever forget about this time. People lost their jobs, people's companies were closed down because you can't afford the day-to-day running. You can't live on debt, you get, because even for small scale people like me, Mshwari was not giving us any money. So people say debt is good, and you also reiterate this. How do we say debt is good when everything associated with debt is bad? Because anytime money enters your pocket, ni deni unalipa. So how is debt good?
Thank you so much. That is a great question. Sometimes when people talk about the goodness and the badness of debt, every borrower thinks their debt was good because they had a good reason that was pushing them into the debt. At the time of needing money, whatever is pushing you into getting that money seems to be good at that point. But we differentiate good and bad debt from the perspective of what that debt is doing to you, and especially in the long run. And we say that good debt leaves you better off than it found you, especially in the long run, than bad debt. Bad debt will leave you worse off. Good debt brings value to you. Bad debt takes away value from you. In financial terms, good debt brings money to you. In other words, it pays itself and leaves you with some more money. Bad debt, on the other hand, takes money away from you. It comes to rob you of what you had, and it does not bring anything to you at all. So basically, that would be the differentiation between good and bad debt. But I must mention quickly that every debt carries a burden element, whether it was good or bad. Even if it's paying itself, you find yourself saying, I can't wait for the day I'll be through with this debt, because it's an obligation.
Is there a way you can avoid debt?
Now, I like saying, these days you hear people say very many interesting things about debt. You've heard people say, for instance, that mwanaume ni deni, mtu ni deni, you can't live without debt, and all those things. And interestingly, they get into our minds. And I've met people who've borrowed when they ought not to have borrowed at all. But just because we live in a society that has everyone talking about debt and everyone seems to normalize debt, then we live thinking that if you do not have debt, you've been left out. And that is not the truth. The truth is that you can actually live without debt. You can actually avoid this burden completely, and then live in what I call the organic way of living. That means that you're able to plan within your income and contain yourself within that income. Ideally, that is what is supposed to be happening, especially at an individual, from an individual perspective. So then you say, I am earning this much. And when this money comes, this is how I want to use it. And I want to contain myself within this amount. And then be real about it. The challenge that we have as individuals a lot of times is that we do not live our own lives. We live for others. I live thinking, what will they think about me? How are my classmates doing? So where I work, where do they live? If I live from this other end, what will happen when they learn that I live from this other end? And so we have all those thoughts coming in to corrupt our thinking around money. And then before you know it, you are spending more than you are earning, right? I like saying that many people, it's good to live within your means, but yes, many people push their living standard ahead, and then they pray and hope that one day their means will come and accommodate them. So you don't grow and wait for your means to follow and accommodate you. you contain yourself in your current means, then grow the means, then follow the grown means, and that becomes the natural way of doing it. I have met people who confess they do not owe anyone, and that is how they have lived, and that is how they do it. But for business, it is still possible to do it, only that many times, depending also on the nature of the business, the growth might be slower. And debt comes in to catalyze the growth.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because that we call it using other people's money for business growth. So for instance, if you are running a retail business where you're buying things and selling them, if you had a capital of 100,000, you're only constrained to buying those things at 100 Gs and selling them. Now, if those things are supplied to you once in a day, and by 10 a.m. you have sold all of them, that means all the customers from 10 to the end of the day, they'll come to buy nothing. Yeah, they ask, you have this, akuna, until tomorrow when you go for your supply. So debt comes in to boost your working capital from 100,000 to whatever it is, so that you can buy a larger stock, so that it can sustain you throughout the day. And that begins to also expand your profit. And then after you've done your sales, the debt is able to pay itself and also leave you with something. At the end of the day, when you clear that debt, you have a bigger working capital.
May I ask, because from that explanation, it sounds to me, for someone who doesn't have a very deep financial background, like an investment, you know? And even most of the people I talk to, and they're like, mtu hana deni hana pesa, you know? Because they're not taking risks. That's what they explain. So for me, what you're telling me, I hear investment, and I don't know the difference. So what's the difference between me getting money from someone to put into the business, like you said, like a catalyst, and getting ninakuchukua deni?
You see, when you pick debt, what you go to do with the debt is very important, right? Now, there is a difference between just borrowing and consuming, and borrowing and putting the money where it can multiply. And that begins to bring in the concept of investment, because investment is sending money to work for you, putting money into some assets so that the assets can appreciate or grow, to bring you more money periodically or at the end of some time as returns. But we have to be cautious here. There are people who will hear this and they run to borrow to start off a business. That's quite risky. Well, the entire thing of borrowing to put money in a business has its own risks, but you see, we live a risky life. It's a balance between how much risk can I take and what returns do I stand, and how do I mitigate this risk. Now, there is a danger in going to borrow to start a new venture. And if you realize, many lenders, many mainstream lenders are not keen on lending to startups, because you have no experience in that business. You do not know. The only thing you have is an idea, right? And so I see many people going to borrow to start a business they have never done before, they know nothing about. And before long, then they burn their fingers. They remain with a bad debt that needs to be paid off, and there's nothing that is coming from what they thought was an investment. So we have to be keen, especially if we want to start off a new venture. For those people who have an idea and they don't have money, we do not discourage them, because we have so many people, like the venture capitalists. They are looking for bankable ideas. They are looking for ideas that can sell, so that they invest in those ideas. Then they also mentor you. They grow with you in your business. When the business takes root, then the way you will have agreed, you settle them, they move out, they leave you with your business. But you see, those have the capacity to journey with you in the new business. But mainstream lenders may not have that time, may not have that capacity. So I just want to caution someone who might be thinking, let me rush to the bank, borrow some money, and begin this new venture. Because people fail to think about the basics. Like, at the end of 30 days, the lender wants their money back. This business that I'm going to pump money into, is it going to generate money in those 30 days? Or what is going to happen? Because I have actually met people who, they go to borrow money, they put into a new business, 30 days, the business has not started bringing money. They actually start using part of the money that is remaining to start servicing the debt because pressure is already coming.
Yeah.
That's how we begin to burn our fingers.
So I mean, in layman's language, an investment ni deni na kuletea pesa. Ni deni iko na returns, good returns. Oh, I understand that. You lost me initially in the beginning of the conversation because I'm looking to start a business. So when you tell me, mainstream industries are not trying to invest, I was I lost hope. Then you saved me at the end. But thank you so much for that information. Let's keep going. And my question now is, for someone in debt, and there's this mentality, even with like, how do you call them, microfinances. I see this very commonly with microfinances. People take a debt and you have a time frame to pay and you stay and say, itaisha. What is the risk of this? Because, you're dealing with the person. This is the human element. There's a chance huyu mtu atasema, nimechoka kumfuata. But there's also the risk of, I'm doing this, but what are the repercussions? Because I don't think there are really that many structures, especially with the way there are many microfinances that maybe, you'll be on is it the CRB list or something like that?
Yes.
So what are the structures like for people maybe trying to get into the debt industry? Loaning money.
You see, the borrowing transaction does not stop when you receive the money. As a good borrower, by the time you're going into borrowing, you have to remember that transaction will stop the day you have repaid your last cent of that amount. So when you are not able to repay and you keep quiet and you run away from them, next time you have a business, you go back to them, they will have blacklisted you. They have their own CRB where you say, I can't lend money to so and so. Even you as an individual, if you're lending money to your friends, and there is this friend who took money and now you can't reach them on phone, they're not talking. You also blacklist them in a way and say, we are banana. Next time they come, I will not listen to them. So that is how it begins to affect you. So it's dangerous to allow yourself to be adversely listed. When you have an obligation, try as much as possible to honor it. When you can't, speak out.
I like that. And just because of matters time, I think we've covered most things about debt. How to, get a debt for starting business. That's venture capitalist where you should go. How you should deal with debts. You should talk to your lenders, and why it's important to pay your debt. And when is it appropriate to say sign it and get deni, when the debt is bringing back some value. And I like that we've touched on the major things. I hope when Studios Open, you can come in and we delve into detail. We have that whiteboard and we put down the numbers.
Yes,
I really love that. I'm looking for information and I love learning about finances. Roy, thank you so much for giving us your time this morning. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much for having me. God bless you and have a good time ahead.